Okay, good evening, Real Progressives. It's Geoff Ginter. This is my last Real Progressives broadcast. At the very least, it is my last one for the foreseeable future. Before I get into exactly why that is the case, I want to be able to take just a few moments at the top to celebrate because Tom MacArthur has officially lost. We knew last week that this was it for him. Tom MacArthur had already lost. Andy Kim had already declared victory last Wednesday. But there were still a lot of provisional ballots to be counted. There was a lot of things to be done, and Tom MacArthur did not want to concede defeat. And this is probably one of the only times I will ever say this. I do respect MacArthur for that. This is democracy. You either love it or you don't. And if you love it, you have to make sure that everything is counted. Even though statistically speaking, he did not have a pathway forward. If there's anyone that lives in Florida or Georgia knows, you've got to make sure your election is clean. You got to make sure that it is fair. You got to make sure that you have the ability to trust what is happening. So, Tommy wanted to be able to make sure all the votes are counted. I respect that. I honestly respect that. But it is over now. It is official. I don't know if he's actually done a concession speech. I actually don't know. I'm going to begin checking my comments here. If anyone knows for sure, is anyone required to make a concession speech or to officially admit defeat? Do they have to? I don't even know if is it simply something that is done, or do you not have to do it, or is there a law? I don't know. So if someone does, if you could please let me know. I'd be interested to know. But I haven't heard that he has officially conceded, but he is officially no longer my representative as of as of January. So I am definitely celebrating this one. This is wonderful. This feels good. I was asked recently if it felt good to dress him down, so to speak, and the answer is no, it did not. It did not feel good. I did not enjoy that. There was nothing fun about that. The subject matter was horrific. The intense amount of pressure that we have all been under the last 47 years building up over all this time has been tremendous. I don't know if there's anyone that doesn't feel it in some fashion. So just letting off some steam, I'm sorry, it didn't feel good because there was no resolution. But this feels good. Him being out, Andy being in, that feels good. That feels very, very good. So with that, let's start the show. Okay, so I know that a lot of people have been looking at the comments, and yes, this is my last Real Progressives live broadcast. There are a lot of reasons why this is happening. I am incredibly grateful to Steve Grumbine and John Lancelot, who introduced me to Real Progressives and to MMT. I love the people involved in Real Progressives. It is not about them, for why I'm leaving. I'm leaving for some personal reasons. But mostly I'm leaving because for all the live streams that I've done, I've been doing it for almost a year, maybe 9 or 10 months now. And it seems that within the confines of my own district, I don't feel like we're getting a lot of traction. Now that Andy is in office or about to take power, I feel a sense of even greater urgency than I did before. It was one thing to get him elected. It was one thing to work hard to get him elected. It's going to be something else entirely to make sure that the policies that we need to be able to live, let alone to be able to thrive, that's the hard work. That is going to be the hard work. We don't have that many people in Congress that we can reliably count on. And even as I say that, even as those words escape my lips, I want to slap myself. No, we don't count on them. We direct them. And that is where my bowels turn to water a little bit. I want to make sure that if we're going to put up a fight, because it's going to be a fight no matter what happens, if we put up a fight, it's not for the ACA. It is for single-payer health care. I want to make sure that we fight for a federal job guarantee. I want to make sure that we fight to be able to get green energy, because we don't have time to screw around with fossil fuel companies and be worried about CEOs and what's going to happen, boo-hoo-hoo, to all them. Meanwhile, California is burning and people are dying. They are still, to this day, pulling out sea life from the Gulf of Mexico that still is infected with oil from all the oil spills that are happening over there. Deepwater Horizon, they're still seeing things like that. We don't have time. So when they say that Medicare for all is going to cost us less, that's true. Of course, it's going to cost us less. Doesn't have to. We can spend more. But you only get to say that if you understand federal appropriations, federal finance. But let's say we're on a gold standard. Let's say that we have to be careful with how much money we actually print into existence. We spend X amount of dollars for private insurance. That money is already being spent. And what we're saying is, let's take that money, instead of giving it to insurance companies and all manner of private money going into healthcare, shift that burden to the government, and the government will spend it, and everyone will be covered, and all these wonderful things will happen. And hey, guess what? It also costs you less. That's an argument that works. That's an argument that can get you from an insurance-based healthcare to a single-payer system and bring people along who are afraid of inflation, who are afraid of taxes, who are afraid of this, afraid of that. But here's the problem. If we use that argument, two things are happening. One, we are conceding that taxes actually fund federal spending, and they don't. The federal government does not require your money as revenue. It does not require it. It simply spends new dollars every time it passes a bill. So the first thing, we're simply conceding a falsehood, and we can't do that. Why? Because we also have to deal with climate change. Climate change is going to take, I don't know how many dollars. It's going to take, in addition to curbing our behavior, there is a technological aspect that is going to have to be brought to bear. We are not going to deal with climate change simply by curbing our gluttony and using fossil fuels less and curbing the excesses of industrialized farming less. No, we have to radically redo all these things, and that is going to take capital investment, and it will not be profitable, so private business won't do it. But someone has to. You don't have the money. I don't have the money. Private corporations have the money, but they're not going to do it out of their own self-interest. To hell with California. To hell with Florida. So someone has to. And the only place that can be is going to be the federal government. And if we concede that taxes fund spending in the argument to get us Medicare for all, in a nice, tidy little bow, so that everyone can understand it and no one will be afraid of it, and great, we get single-payer health care, but California burns. Florida goes under, and the sea life goes under. So we need to be able to confront Congress as a unified people and say that we understand federal finance. We understand the limits of federal spending. The limits are the availability of resources. The limits are inflation. So don't tell us that you can't afford it. We know it can be afforded. Whatever is for sale in U.S. dollars, we can do it. What matters is, do we have the stuff, the real stuff, to make what we need? So we can't afford to allow anyone to simply try to shore up the ACA, because you're still propping up for-profit healthcare and people will die. We cannot afford to simply acquiesce to, we'll put in all these pay-fors and we'll be spending money less overall, but everyone gets covered. No, we can't do that, because the next fight is climate change. And if we have already acquiesced to taxation as needed for revenue for the federal government, then we're going to have a legitimate conversation about how expensive it's going to be to retool the energy grid to get rid of fossil fuels. And we can't afford to spend time on that fight. We have to come up with a plan to get it done. How much it's going to cost is immaterial compared to the damage and the cost of not doing it. So this is what we're up against. And I need to make sure that the people in my district are going to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Andy Kim and make sure that we get the policies that we need, because it can't just be Andy. It can't be any single congressman. It can't. They have to have the power of their constituencies behind them, forcing their hand to get it done in the first place, which will force the hand of the next congressman and the next congressman and the next congressman. So we need to be able to have these conversations right now. We don't have the luxury of waiting. You want to take a week or so to celebrate the fact that MacArthur went down and Andy's up? Fine, by all means, let's celebrate. We need to have things to celebrate in this world. But we need to be able to have the conversations that the politicians aren't having, that Democrats aren't having. We need to have conversations about employment in this country. They're going to say that employment is at its all-time lowest. Fantastic. You want to talk about employment? Let's talk about underemployment. Let's talk about people that work 22 hours a week and are counted as full-time employees. Let's talk about stagnant wages and the purchasing power of that dollar that you get in your paycheck. Let's talk about the poverty in this country. 40 to 60% in poverty or so close to it, they can taste it. They're one bad paycheck away from it. 60% of the country can't afford a $500 emergency. Suddenly, those unemployment numbers look like shit. We have to be able to push back. We need the facts on our side, we need passion on our side, and we need at least a basic understanding of federal finance, so they can't come back at us and say, look, we'd love to give you single-payer health care. Obviously, climate change is a problem, and we'd love to fix it for you, but the debt and the deficit is just too goddamn high. Because we already have problems enough with ideologues trying to run the bodies of females, trying to run roughshod over them. I didn't get a chance to show this a couple of weeks ago when I'd wanted to, because Facebook shut me down. I still think Facebook shut me down. I don't know. Halfway through, and I couldn't get back on Facebook. I don't know exactly what happened. But I wanted to show at least these two video clips, because this is why I'm going to be doing what I'm doing now. This is why I'm going to be going around and trying to give as many talks as I can when I'm going to, try to get people together and talk about federal finance so we can formulate a real plan for how we're going to get the progressive agenda that we all claim that we want, and we certainly desperately need. But these two people that were also at the town hall that I was at, these two people give me hope. They're young, they're idealistic, and they don't take shit from nobody. Because in addition to the powers that be telling us that, well, things are just so expensive and therefore we can't do it, are also trying to do other things. This is Joseph. I love this guy.
So based on how you've talked about your mother, your daughter, your wife, you consider yourself a proponent of women's rights, correct? Yes. So now my question, how did it pass your conscience to allow rape to be considered a pre-existing condition, forcing women to choose between justice and silence to protect their affordable health care? How did that pass your conscience as a proponent of women's rights? Do you understand that you are contributing to the oppression of women in this country?
Increasing in premiums.
Is it true that rape can be considered a pre-existing condition? Is that true?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no?
You cannot be charged more because of that.
Can rape, sir, my question is, can rape, I would like answer to this one question.
I just did
Can rape, yes or no, be considered a pre-existing condition?
You cannot be denied coverage or charged more because of that. That is the answer. It's not you're talking about a violation of somebody, and you're asking me, can they be charged more and priced out of the market? And I say no.
Can it be considered a pre-existing condition? Can it be considered a pre-existing condition?
I've answered the question.
No, you have not. My question.
This is what Republicans and, quite honestly, a lot of people would love to see happen. The subjugation of women. On top of having to discuss and argue and fight for our lives over how expensive something is, they also want to do shit like this. But thank God we had people like Joseph who were going to stand up and demand answers. They will not sit down. They will not accept bullshit answers. And then when he was done, along came Daisy.
We are the future, and we are going to vote. And I am going to vote in 2018, and so are we all. Now, I'd like to go back to a question that my friend Joey asked you, which you neglected to answer. Is rape considered a pre-existing condition under your amendment? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? One word, please. One word, please.
Folks, you get to ask the questions, and I get to answer them.
Yes, so answer them. So answer them. Now, let me say one more thing. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to spread false information. I believe the statistic is 1 in 5 women will be the victim of a completed or attempted rape before their freshman year in college. I can't even fathom that. And the fact that that may be considered a pre-existing condition, and you call that not discriminating against women? What do you say about that?
But somebody asks a question about a pre-existing condition. You asked about a heart condition.
It was me. No, I asked about a pre-existing condition. It was rape. I should not be escorted away because you won't answer my question. We've all tried being civil. It's not working.
So there's a lot to talk about there, but two things that I just want to talk about there. Thank God for these people. Thank God for these people. I thank God for them every day, because I know they're still active. I know they're not taking any bullshit. I know they take this shit seriously, and that's what we need. It is the long, hard, sustained engagement that we need. Nothing else will do. Nothing else will even come close. Right now, we're at a crossroads. Are we in or are we out? People are celebrating online and on the mainstream media that we had the largest midterm voter turnout in God knows how long. Okay. Congratulations. We have about 260 million registered voters in this country. We had about 100 million votes. That is not even half. That is not even half. So yes, we can say that voter turnout was the highest that it's ever been, and I don't want to diminish that per se, but I want you to understand that that is still not sufficient to the task. I'm not talking about the fact that we didn't take the Senate or we didn't take the, I don't care about taking anything. I care about the policies. It is going to take an informed electorate. And that's going to take people inspiring other people. It's going to take people to wake up. And some people are just not going to wake up until you inspire them to do so, until you give them a reason to wake up. You need to be able to reach people. Those kids, they reached me. I was fired up after that. I was completely on the edge of my seat. I was shaking a little bit. And we need that. We absolutely need that. Without it, we're lost. Without it, we'll see wherever the chips fall. But that's not good enough. We don't have the time to wait to see where the chips fall. We got to be active. We got to be engaged. It's the only way we're going to move forward in a way that is going to lift us up out of this hell that we're in and try to mitigate the hell that is to come. I don't care who your political heroes are. I care if you are passionate enough and strong enough to follow the policies such that if your political hero drops the ball and starts pivoting into the wrong direction, that you will correct them. Do it lovingly, if you can. Do it lovingly to begin with, but if they don't turn around, they are unimportant. It is the policies that are important. I honestly don't care if it's a Democrat, an Independent, or a Republican that gets us single-payer health care at the end. It could be Donald fucking Trump for all I care. I will be sitting happily with a single-payer health care card. I will have no copay, no deductible, everything covered from birth to death, from womb to tomb. I don't care whose signature went on the actual bill. And if you do, I need you to wake up. It doesn't matter who gets us there. It matters that we get there. And don't get me wrong. First, I believe Donald Trump will sign anything that goes in front of him. So by all means, someone put a subpoena, in front of him, he'll fucking sign it. I hate Donald Trump. Not the man. I had never met the man. I hate what he does. I absolutely loathe every word that comes out of his mouth. Never broke bread with the man. Have no idea if I would hate him personally. But what the man does, he should never have been in office. And that's why I do what I do. Donald Trump is a symptom. You want to make sure that that never happens again. That means you're going to have to deal with neoliberalism. That's going to take a working knowledge, maybe not a complete knowledge, but a working knowledge of federal finance, so we can take their greatest weapon away from them. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take people standing up. I need you all to find your voice. I need you all to find a way to be able to wake up the next 5 people around you, and they will wake up 5 people around them. Get them excited. Get them interested. Be aspirational. Find out what their hopes and dreams are. Find out what their fears are. There is a way to speak to everyone that allows them to breathe deeper and freer than they ever did before when they realize that the boot that is on their neck from the oligarchs can easily be kicked off if we all unite around the concepts of federal finance, which will allow people who will definitely have natural inclinations towards caring for one another. You take away the fear that doing so is going to monetarily affect them. You take that away, oh, they start breathing freer. I've seen it happen again and again and again, and I need you to help me do that. So I'm going to start taking care of my district. I'm going to start looking after my own front porch in my backyard. Because Andy's going to need our help. He won't be able to do it on his own. We can't afford to send him there, hope that he's going to do it, and then let the chips fall where they may. No, we got to put the chips where they need to go. That's our job. Because we need to be able to answer this. I haven't shown this one in a while. But most people that watch my show, most people that watch Real Progressives have seen this particular graph before. This is a graph that shows many things, but it basically shows GDP, which is our gross domestic product, the accumulation of all the sales that go on in a year. That's our GDP. The more sales we have, the more wealth is generated, higher the GDP goes. And this shows that as GDP rose from basically mid-1940s through to the early to mid-1970s, as GDP went up, so did our wages. Not perfectly, but in general, as GDP went up, so did our wages. But look at what happens after the mid to late 1970s. GDP goes through the goddamn roof. Wealth is being generated. But are we sharing in it? Nope. Wages stagnate. So how does GDP continue to go up? How does that happen? If you listen to Stephanie Kelton, she'll tell you that capitalism runs on sales. GDP, the gross domestic product, is the accumulation of all sales in the country. GDP cannot rise if people are not purchasing. Well, if our wages have stagnated, and it's been shown that household spending constitutes, what, I think upwards of 70 to 80% of GDP, how can it be that GDP keeps going up if our wages have flatlined? It's being done on the backs of us, of our debt. So let's talk about debt. Let's talk about deficits for a bit. Why is a deficit horrible for us and not much of anything for the federal government? Federal government creates the currency. Federal government creates it. If they create it, then they don't need it back. Let's listen to Stephanie Kelton.
Should play by that set of rules. Then I do a little exercise with them, and I say, okay, let's find out whether you understand the deficit and the national debt. So you would think that they would, because again, they work with money and finance. They don't have a clue. They hate it and they're mad at the deficit until I get done with them. And so here's what I do. I go in and I say, okay, I'll play the role of the government. And so I have my basically monopoly money, but it has my picture on it. And so they're Kelton bucks, right? So I'm the government, so I'm going to spend some money into the economy. You're all in the private sector of my economy, businesses, households. And so I'm going to spend 10 into the economy. So I hand someone 10. Now they have 10, right? And I say, but I'm going to collect taxes now. So I'm going to tax back 7. So they hand me back 7. And I say, what did I do? I ran a deficit. So I go and I scroll it down, -3. Government of Kelton. So now you're supposed to be very angry at me because I did this irresponsible thing called running a budget deficit. My -3, how mad are you? You're sitting there holding 3. Where'd you get it? You got it from me. And you wouldn't have that 3 if I hadn't put in more than I took out. So now they're thinking, huh. And I say, but wait, let's do it the proper way. Let's balance the budget. So give me the money back. We'll do it again. So I spend 10 in. I tax 10 out. Now I've balanced my budget. I go right down. Balanced budget, smiley face. Everybody's supposed to be happy. Are you happy? No, I miss my 3, right? I miss my 3. So I say, well, okay, hang on. Let's go do it the Clinton way, because this is what really excites the Democrats, right? Those Clinton surpluses. So but now, you have a problem, because in order for me to run a surplus, I have to collect more from you than I put back into the economy. So taxes have to be higher than government spending. So now you see yourself going into the red so that I can go into the black. So you have the deficit, I have the surplus. How do you feel? And they go, miserable, right? Give me back my deficit. So the point is, people don't have the foggiest idea. And then you do the national debt. What is the national debt? I spend 10 into the economy. I tax 7 out. You're holding 3 Kelton dollars. I hold up 3 treasuries. I also have them laminated with my picture. And these are treasuries, right? And I say, who would like to buy these 3 Kelton treasury bonds? And sure enough, the person in the audience who's got the 3 Kelton dollars that don't pay any interest would like to swap them for the treasuries, which pay interest. Now you feel even happier, because not only did I give you money, I'm subsidizing your savings with free interest money, right? Which is what's happening when the government borrows. The money to buy the bonds comes from the deficit spending itself. So you're not even out anything. You're up, your wealth is up, your income is up. The problem is with the distribution, because who holds those treasuries? They're not equitably distributed across the economy. They're mostly concentrated in the hands of the wealthy, who can afford to save and put money into investment vehicles like treasuries and so forth. So it isn't that the national debt is a bad thing, it's your asset. My liability, it's your asset, right? And you're getting a risk-free asset, and I'm paying you to have it. We could talk about why I do that.
And that would be a very interesting conversation. Why do they do that? But do we understand that relationship? The federal government creates the dollar. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The government of the United States creates the dollar. You can't do it. I can't do it. That's counterfeiting. You go away to prison for 20 years. So the federal government creates it. And it demands that you use it because it is going to enforce a tax upon you in that currency. So if you don't want to go to prison for not paying your taxes, you better earn U.S. dollars. That's the value of the U.S. dollar, not the fact that it's backed by gold. Gold was for price stability. It didn't even work. We're glad to be rid of it. But the tax is what drives the value of the currency. You need it so that you don't go to jail. So when the federal government spends, it is going to tax. It taxes so that you will demand the currency. And when it spends more than it takes back in a tax, that's a deficit to the federal government. But to you and to me and to everyone else that gets their hands on those extra dollars, that's our bonus. That's our income. Do you understand the difference there? If the federal government spends more than it takes in taxation, that's not a problem, because it never took in the taxation to finance itself. But if you and I or a federal or a state government or a corporation or anyone else that uses the currency, that does not issue it, if we spend more than we take in, that is a problem. That is a huge problem, because we have to earn that money. So in that graph, when those wages stagnated, we're essentially not earning any more money on the aggregate. The average wage in the country is not going up, but GDP does go up. So where are we, the 70 to 80% of the GDP generating activity, where are we getting all this money to continue GDP going up? We're going to banks. We're putting it on our credit cards. We're getting payday loans. Our debt that we have to be able to finance through our paychecks. We have to earn that money. We got to work our asses off One job isn't enough anymore. It's got to be 2 jobs. All you millennials out there, understand your side hustles. You can't just be doing one thing anymore. Doesn't matter if you ever wanted to do one thing for the rest of your life. Doesn't matter if that was ever a good thing. You always had the opportunity to do more if you wanted to. The point is that now you don't have the choice. One income per household is not enough. So we are struggling. We are suffering. And the federal government can fix it by increasing the size of the deficit and distributing, as Stephanie Kelton pointed out, distributing that money equitably to where it's most desperately needed, so that we can have a balanced economy, so that people will have wages that will give them a dignified living, so that they will have sufficient to be able to put savings aside and still be able to spend into the economy, so that we can have a growing economy. It runs on sales. You give the money to the oligarchs and they will hoard it. You will find small pockets of economic activity based upon that actually makes it into our pockets. You will find that. But by and large, you give it to the rich people and we don't benefit. You give it to us, they'll get it eventually, but it'll flow through our hands first. We will be able to generate economic activity out of our paychecks, not off of a predatory lender, not off of a credit card, not after a bank loan. But you're not going to get Democrats talking about that. You're not going to get Democrats actually ending the stranglehold that Wall Street has on us, because Wall Street makes billions and billions of dollars. And they don't want to see those dollars go away. So the people that get sent to Congress, they actually work for a very, very tiny constituency. We vote for them, but they don't work for us. They work for them. This is why I'm going to be spending more time in my own community talking to people about this, so that at least in the New Jersey 3rd, Andy Kim will have a base of people who will understand what actually needs to happen. The fact that we can do it, and the fact that we haven't been doing it for 47 years is the greatest national shame, right after slavery and the decimation of the indigenous population. We can take care of all of it. But it's going to take people being knowledgeable, and with that knowledge, they will be free to be aspirational. They could stop just fighting for the crumbs, being afraid that this tiny little bit that they have been allowed to have can be taken away from them. They would actually start seeing the world as it is. That the economic desperation that we all feel has been manufactured to be exactly that. Because as Alan Greenspan said in the mid-90s, one of his greatest accomplishments in the economy was creating worker insecurity. Because when workers are insecure, they don't ask for wages, they don't ask for time off, they don't ask for vacation. They do as they're told. Because they're afraid that at a snap of the fingers, they can become unemployed. And that's good for the corporations, he said. And oh, God, how wonderful that was. But I want to see a congressman who's going to have something to say about this. The third leading cause of death. What is the third leading cause of death? The third leading cause of death is medical errors. A recent Johns Hopkins study claims more than 250,000 people die in the U.S. every year from medical errors. Other reports claim the numbers to be as high as 440,000. It's the third leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer. That is for-profit healthcare at work. That is for-profit healthcare that cares more about its bottom line than your life. You shore up the ACA, you start being afraid of the little crumbs that they have allowed you to keep. Let them eat cake. You start fighting for the crumbs, and you are allowing a for-profit healthcare system to exist, to continue. And you will save lives. Don't get me wrong. You will save lives, and you will pat yourself on the back, and I will thank God every day for every life that is saved. But you need to be able to look yourself in the eye and be able to realize that you may have saved tens of thousands, but you're fighting for that needlessly caused the deaths of 220 to 440,000 people who didn't need to die needlessly. And the only reason you fought for the ACA is because you were afraid, and I understand that. I do. I get that. I'm not pointing a finger at you and saying, how dare you? I am looking at you. I am imploring you. Understand federal finance so that you won't want to do that anymore. You don't have to. You don't have to be afraid of what you could lose by going for all of it. You get an entire congressional district united behind the candidate that we send there, and we can get shit done. And I'm talking about good shit. I'm talking about single-payer health care. I'm talking about a federal job guarantee. I'm talking about canceling student loan debt. I am talking about getting us onto a green energy, completely redoing the energy grid, getting us off fossil fuels, ending foreign wars, sending liberation into Palestine, and ending the interference that we have in South and Central America, ending the war in Yemen. I am talking about going for all of it. Because we can, and in most cases, we don't have the time to not. And the only way to get that to happen is for everyone to understand federal finance at least a little. Your federal taxes do not finance federal spending. Social Security is not going broke. It can't go broke. So stop falling for it. When they tell us to be afraid about how expensive something is, look them in the eye and say, I know where the dollar comes from. I know what the Constitution says. So I know you're full of shit. I know what the limits of federal spending are. It is the availability of our idle resources. I know about inflation. Don't come at me with Weimar Germany. Don't come at me with Zimbabwe. Don't come at me with Venezuela. You come up with those things. I know you don't know what you're talking about. And if you're a citizen, we'll have a conversation. We'll keep it civil. You're running for Congress? No, it's not going to be civil. It won't be mean, but if you're running for Congress, I need you to know. And if you're in Congress, all civility goes completely out the door. Your hands are on the levers of power. You expect me to be kind to you while you are directing us off a cliff. When I got people like Nancy Pelosi giving us false platitudes about unity. Unity for what? She told us to our face that she's a capitalist, and that's the way it is. Can't have that. I'm sorry, we can't have that. You want to be a capitalist in private enterprise for things that are not life and death? Fine. We will make rules of the road so that everyone can enjoy equal access to the market. May the best ideas win. That's what you all say is supposed to drive the market, right? Market forces, the best ideas win. While you guys keep buying up smaller corporations and smaller companies and making yourselves huge international conglomerates, crowding out competition. There will be rules of the road. There will be as close to a free market as can be, but it will be regulated so that everyone can participate. But if it's life and death, you're out of there. Healthcare, infrastructure, green energy, education. These are the things that are the investments in our future. You don't get to make profit off of them. You get to do them. You get to make great money doing it, but it's coming from the federal government. And they're going to want to make sure that you're doing your goddamn job. And who is the government? We are. I'm going to say this yet again. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And for anyone that says that the government should not be in the job of doing any of that for us, this is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and women, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. We are the people. People ask me all the time, are you not afraid of so much government power? Are you concerned that you're giving government all this power? Of course I'm concerned. Because if the deal is that we vote for people to go to Congress and then we leave them alone to do the work, that is a terrifying idea. And if you don't think that's a terrifying idea, you haven't been paying attention for the last 40, 50, 60 years. Because that's what we've been doing. Do you understand the rampant poverty, police brutality, all the wars that are happening in our name? Countless people being murdered. That's all being done in our name because we allowed it to happen, because that's exactly what we did do. We did put all that power into the hands of people and sent them on their way and say, God, I really hope they're going to do something good this time. But they don't. They never do. If you want different, do different. Be different, demand different, and do that first of yourself. I did nothing for 47 years. Do you have any idea how fucking miserable that makes me to know that I did nothing? To know that I am responsible to whatever degree I hold that responsibility. It is mine. I knew better and I did nothing because I believed there was nothing I could do. And I've never been more wrong about anything in my entire life. And so are you if you're like me. You could do so much more. You are capable of so much more. And we need to bring that to bear to Congress. We don't send people to Congress. They take us to Congress. That's the way it works now. That's what I declare. That's what's going to happen. Yes, we're putting power in the hands of the government. But we, the people, are the government. So why would you be afraid of yourself? Don't be afraid of your neighbors. We're going to come together. We're going to improve the quality of our democracy. We're going to make everything better. Because we can. Because we have to. Because people are suffering. And if you look at the trajectory of where we've been over the last 40 to 50 years, over the entire course of my lifetime, I just turned 49 years old. Over the entire course of my lifetime, by virtually every metric, everything is worse to greater or lesser degrees. They allow us one step forward to give us the illusion that things are getting better, but then they take 2 steps back. We can do better. But it's only going to happen if we all collectively demand it. They will not hand it to us. They will not allow it to happen. They have to be forced into it. It has always been that way. And it always will be. So remember this. I've done this before. I'm going to do it just for a few moments right here. What are the order of operations for federal spending? The order of operations is quite simple. First, you make your set of priorities. What kind of a civilization do you want? Do you want to have peace? Do you want to have justice? Do you think everyone should have health care? Do you think everyone should have education? What do you want? First, decide. What do you want? What do you want it to look like? And in my opinion, once you've decided that everyone should have access to health care, the best health care, that education should be a right and no one should be denied an education no matter what their income level is. If you have the talent, you should be able to get the education, and it should be available. We should have 21st, 22nd century infrastructure. We should be heavily researching R&D into green energy and finding out how we can control the consumption of our resources. Private corporations aren't going to do this. There are small firms doing it, and larger firms are doing it to a certain amount of pressure, but we don't have the time to be able to wait for them to decide that it's profitable. It's got to be done. It's got to be done now. So make your set of priorities. And once you've done that, how do you want to achieve it? Well, if healthcare should be a universal right, and if you are in healthcare, you can't be in business. And if you're in business, you can't be in healthcare. So we can't allow it to be at the whims of private corporations. How do I want to achieve it? It's got to be a single-payer healthcare. It's got to be run by the government because the government is the only one that doesn't need a revenue. Article 1, Section 8, they create the currency. They don't need revenue, and they sure as shit don't need profit. So decide how you want to go about doing it. Next, you assess your resources. Do you have the real stuff to do it? I use this example all the time in healthcare. Right now, we got tens and tens of thousands of people who are going to die every year because they couldn't access it. We have millions of people who don't have health care at all. We have millions more who are underinsured who don't use the system. So if we suddenly have Medicare for all, well, there's going to be a lot of people who are suddenly going to have access to it and are going to be given the right to use it. And if we don't have enough facilities to accommodate that, things are going to get bad. So the first thing we need to do is ask these questions. Do we have the resources now? Do we have the hospitals, the clinics, the doctors, the nurses? Do we have enough medical manufacturing companies? Do we have enough pharmaceutical companies? But I guess, I was essentially done. I guess this is it. I'm really going to miss doing these. I really am. I'm going to miss you guys. I love Real Progressives. Again, in very real ways, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing the regular live streams. I'm still going to be writing articles. I'm going to be making some video content. I will be sharing them with Real Progressives. I'll be getting the word out as best I can. But I need to focus locally. I need to make sure. So I need you guys to do that too. I need you guys to reach out to your local communities. I need you to make sure that the people you just voted in are held accountable. You voted for them for a reason, and now they have to make sure that that happens. Make sure that they are acquainted with these people. I just wanted to be able to tell you all I love you very much. And I miss you. And I'm thinking about you all the time. I want to make sure that you don't give up. That every one of us needs each and every one of us. We are our own heroes. You are my heroes. All of you. You all have the power to make the change that we need to make. And I need you to believe that. I need you to activate on that. And I need you to find your heroes. Find everyone. Wake up as many people as you can. You can do that. Maybe you won't have the opportunity that I did to be able to get up in front of a congressman and wave my finger and yell and scream. But you can talk to your neighbors and I can't. You can talk to your friends. You can talk to your enemies. You can have an impact that I can't. You are everything that we have all been waiting for. We are all representations of that. You can do this, and I desperately need you to do it. It can't just be me. It can't just be Steve and Joy. It's got to be all of us, or it may as well be none of us. Don't hold faith in your elected leaders. Hold them accountable. Like them, work with them, hate them, I don't care. Don't trust them. Don't trust them because they are going to be pawed at like you have no idea. You want their attention, so do the corporations, so do the oligarchs. Everyone wants a piece of them. It is your job, your responsibility to get their attention. It is your job and responsibility to learn and understand federal finance so that you can have real conversations with them and not accept bullshit answers from them. You can like them, but they're not your friends. Even if your friend went, they're no longer just your friend. They are your elected leader, which means they have to do their jobs. You got to make sure that happens. I love you guys so much. I'll be around. If you need me, just instant message me, call me up, email me. I'm always around. I'm going to be doing the same fighting. I'm just going to be doing it more locally. And I'll still be writing articles and publishing them. I will still be making video content and sharing it around, including on Real Progressives. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just not doing this regular Wednesday thing all the time now. You guys will never understand how much you mean to me, how much your support has made me stronger. I love you guys, and that is never going to change. But for right now, I got to take care of my backyard. Run for office. Well, easier said than done. You guys mean the world to me. So I'm going to fight for you, as I fight for my family, as I fight for my wife, as I fight for my kids. I'll be around. Take care. Bye.